We have Aminah Khan, political analyst, joining us from Islamabad now. Alina, welcome to Indus News. And just as an opening statement, we obviously know what is happening in Afghanistan. What do you have to say about the developing situation in Afghanistan? Taliban in the Afghan presidential palace negotiating with the current sitting government for a peaceful takeover.
First of all, it's Aminah Khan, not Alina.
I beg your pardon.
Yes. That's perfectly fine. Well, look, the situation is unfolding. One can only hope right now to be cautiously optimistic and that there is a peaceful transition of power. We're, hearing conflicting news that, President Ghani, the latest is that he's, moved to Tajikistan, that Mullah is moving out too. It doesn't really matter who's leaving and who's not, who's leaving or who's coming. For example, there are statements that Baradar is to come. The fact is that the Afghan people have suffered for far too long. And it is time now that the country comes together. Unless and until all sides do not cooperate and compromise and accommodate each other, we're going to see the same chaos. Now, I was just listening to the discussion, and I think that a lot of people are somewhat surprised as to what has happened. No, we might be surprised at the speed in which the Taliban took over the different districts and provinces, but certainly this was coming. The day the Americans signed the agreement with the Taliban, in the absence of Kabul, and then more so when the Americans began to execute the agreement by announcing their withdrawal without getting anything from the Taliban. Remember, the Taliban have not fulfilled any side of the Doha agreement apart from not attacking American forces. So in that way, it did embolden the Taliban, and this was expected. Yes, the pace at what it, the rate at what, how the Taliban have taken over, this can be debated, but certainly it was understood that the Taliban would come into power. Moreover, there was a consensus amongst the different political Afghan factions, and we saw this in Moscow in 2018 and 2019, where they were engaging with the Taliban, and they had spoken about, this prospects of an inclusive interim setup. So this is not really something new. And I don't think we should be surprised. But again, I think we need to be cautiously optimistic, and let's just hope that it is peaceful.
We can only hope that it is peaceful, but it doesn't seem like a swift thing which is going to be happening as we are speaking, because also as an Afghan delegation is arriving in Islamabad for discussions. They are already here. So, and there is another Afghan government delegation that is heading to Doha soon for talks with the Taliban. So I believe the Taliban sitting government is not going to be, are not going to give it quite easily to the Taliban. Are we talking about a major agreements or conditions here? Let me take Mr. Zaman's comment first, and then we'll go to Zunaira and Aminah.
View in the matter is that we have to be very, very circumspect and look at the matter closely and see how these parties tomorrow when they meet here in Islamabad as well as in Doha, they talk about it. But my reading into the matter is that things are going the way of Taliban's want, and both all the stakeholders, whether it be the United States or Taliban or the government, the Afghan government, which is kind of dwindling and it is about to leave. So I believe that Afghans would have an upper hand, and their assertions in the matter would be taken rather seriously. So I am of the view that Taliban would be have an upper hand in the talks, and I'm sure they will come out rather successfully than any other stakeholder.
Right. Zunaira, the same question is upon you as well. What do you have to say?
To be honest, I think it is time that we would see more of a regional politics coming into play. What Pakistan is going to do about it is obviously the whole of the world knows is very important, because not only that we are the immediate bordered, we are the people who have had the worst of the spillover of this war on terror. Similarly, the China's role is imminent and the Russia's role is imminent. So it's all coming back to the regional politics. That's how I look at it. Whatever is being discussed in Islamabad today and for the days to come is going to have a lot of input from these regional players. I'm not talking about India here because they were always and already on the other side of the spectrum. And I suppose because they made a bad call, because staying in the region and siding with another power was a terrible strategic mistake that they made. So another perspective is that no matter what arrangement is made, whether it is going to be acceptable to US or not, because a dwindling power or the kind of defeat that they had and the kind of mistakes like Saigon that they have repeated in Kabul and Afghanistan, they would not want to be ousted like that all of a sudden from world politics. So maybe there are a lot of maybes around here. But I don't know if they, well, my colleague said that it does not come as a surprise. It does come as a surprise because if even the Afghan government did not know that there is going to be a withdrawal, like the whole Kandahar air base, the Bagram air base was out of lights for the whole night, and 7 o'clock in the morning.
We have to give them some light on this, Zunaira. They didn't know about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like a situation will evolve within 24 hours, within 48 hours. A lot of surprises will come to the world, not to the Afghani people and Taliban, I would say. But the worst nightmare for the boys, for the women, and for the children, that is the humanitarian crisis that I'm referring to again and again. And I think the world should begin to look towards the regional powers for humanitarian aid as well, because we have learned that we have not learned from history, looking at the UN, looking towards US, looking towards UK, the way they have fled away. I think a regional power is going to take hold of the situation.
Now, Aminah, coming to you, obviously there are two delegations. Right now, one is present in Islamabad and another one is flying to Doha. What can we expect from these delegations and talks, obviously, resulting?
First of all, I think the writing was on the wall, and when President Ghani and Dr. Abdullah went to Washington, they were clearly told that they had to sort it out themselves, and that even, with sorting out themselves, there was also a condition that there might be the possibility that he will have to honorably exit. Now, the issue is that President Ghani, unfortunately, has hung onto power, and that is the major issue that we're facing today. Now, the delegation that is here today in Islamabad is the same delegation that was a part of the Moscow talks, and they have been engaging with the Taliban, where talks have been revolving around this inclusive interim setup. Moreover, what we're hearing now is that the delegation that is going to go to Doha, that is when there is going to be an official transfer of power, where, this new interim setup will be, announced. Again, I think there is a lot of speculation. There are different, comments coming out of Afghanistan, and I think for now, the most important thing is that whoever comes into power, whether it's Ahmed Jalali, who's going to head, this new interim setup, or for that matter, whoever it is, it should be a peaceful transition of power. More so, I think, instead of regional powers, there is regional consensus, I agree, but I think it's unfair to now ask the region to intervene. The Americans are the major stakeholders, they're a signatory to the agreement, and they have a responsibility, which again, I say, is a responsible and measured exit. And that also means having some sort of semblance of stability in Afghanistan before they withdraw. And that means brokering this so-called agreement in Doha, which we're all very much looking forward to.
Right, Aminah, we wouldn't be wrong if we are to discuss what if the situation worsens. Let's say if it does not go to the planned peaceful transfer of power, and let's say the Taliban negotiations with the Kabul government fail, what can we expect afterwards?
Well, that's the thing. Unfortunately, President Ghani does not really have the option to say no, because people within his administration are already engaging with the Taliban. So I think it's just 3 particular members that are opposed to this, and that is Amrullah Saleh, unfortunately President Ghani himself, and Hamdullah Mohib. So from the news that I have is that he doesn't really have much of an option. It has been agreed upon that there will be this inclusive interim setup that will have the Taliban as major stakeholders with other political factions, and particularly those that are in Pakistan today. It's just a matter of time, and I think we're going to see this transition of power. It is unfortunate. one only wishes that President Ghani had engaged with the Taliban, and therefore there could have been an honorable exit instead of having this forced exit.
Right, Mr. Zaman, what do you think? If we do not expect a peaceful negotiations coming out, if we do not receive a positive results, what can be the negative results coming out?
I think that would be really disastrous if negative things happen. But I am, I'm apprehending that the way things are moving and the way things are evolving, it won't be negative because, fortunately enough, Taliban have, it appears that they have learned their lessons, and what they are talking is a lot of sense. So my own, understanding is that probably not negative, but rather some positive, things would come out of these talks.
Mr. Zaman, with your permission, just to add on this thing, Mr. Zaman, with your permission, just to add on this question, we have countries in the world that are supporting peace in Afghanistan, and on the priority and the first most country, that is Pakistan. But we also know for a fact that there are countries who do not want to see peace in Afghanistan. And in that scenario, if we are expecting, obviously there are delegations coming to Islamabad, there are delegations going to Doha for further discussions. I'm sure there must be behind the door talking going on right now. What can we expect for the worst?
You see, we know, let me say candidly that the countries that are not supporting and who are the spoilers are basically India. And to some extent United States also, because United States has got mud on its face. So naturally, they are not very happy with what is happening. But I think that, these countries would not be able to play any significant role, especially after, these recent developments. India must be feeling very, very bad about what is happening and how things are unfolding in Afghanistan. So I don't think so that they can really now play a spoiler's role now at the moment, because things have changed dramatically. What was expected that Taliban would take about 90 days to reach Kabul, but now they are already there. So I don't think so that these detractors would have any say in the matter now, and I think they must be reading with anger at what's happening around in the region. Whereas all the China, Iran, our neighbors, neighbors in the region, the Iran, the Central Asian member states, they are all into it. So I don't think so, and I hope that things would, happen the way Pakistan desires, and the way, in fact, we have made it also very abundantly clear that we have no favorites. But at the same time, things would, and I hope that things would happen the way, the Taliban want and the way that we aspire to. And Pakistan has played a very critical role. So has, other regions, especially other countries in the matter. So I feel that things would, evolve in a better way for us and for Taliban and for the other stakeholders.
Right, Zunaira, I'd love to have your comment on this as well. We're talking about the factors that might be interested in sabotaging the peace negotiations that are happening right now between the Taliban and the Afghan government. What happens if the things go wrong?
Well, I really don't see anything going wrong, because they are already talking from the position of strength. And when I say from the position of strength, they have complete control over the 30 provinces and capitals of Afghanistan. We have also got the news that Afghan National Army are now changing their clothes. They are giving away their uniforms, and they are joining hands with Taliban for whatever reason. It could be like they want to side with whoever is in power, or they're afraid of that. That doesn't matter now anymore. Moreover, I think now is the time to think more sensibly. If we can academically act as someone who has always been listening to US narrative, who has been actually bagging all the peace talks, and then leaving the country in such a chaos that the people are flabbergasted and they are feared for their lives, because it is yet to be seen how Taliban are going to behave. There is this speculation that these are not the Taliban of the 90s. Who knows? This is the time that they need legitimacy, so they are behaving in a way that the world wants them to behave. But once they are in power, whether it is whosoever is the head of government is from Taliban or not. It is in the eyesight. It is like completely written on the wall that it is going to be Taliban ruling the Afghanistan. So we have to act in a very sane manner without speculating that who was the broker of the deals and who was not, because the ones who broke the deals, they are gone. They actually have run away, and their own people and their own government is critical of what Biden administration has done. And of all the intellectuals that I have talked to, at least, they are furious over the way they have abandoned the people in Afghanistan. US is very divisive at the moment for whatever they have done. And we also see and witness the kind of fear that the women, especially there was this minister for women affairs who is in Washington at the moment, and she said there is no protection, there is nothing over there for women still. So we can't just simply forget what we were fighting for. Okay, maybe the spell of terrorism is over for the time being. What is coming is an uneasy limbo that we are living in, and we have to stay optimistic, yes, but we have to keep our guards well up as well.
Right. Can we face this in the future? This question obviously goes to all three of you, Aminah, Zunaira, and Mr. Zaman. Obviously, as I was talking about the factors that do want to destabilize Afghanistan still as we are talking, and I'm sure they would want that in the future as well. Obviously, the Taliban has taken control over Afghanistan, completely whitewashing the US's efforts for 20 years they have put there. And obviously, we also saw $89 billion that was used, funded by the US to Afghan government for training their army, which has also failed. Can we expect, now the Taliban has won war, and now it is set to take on another war, and that is the fifth generation war? Zunaira, let's have you comment on this first.
Well, I would have to agree, although I hate to agree to this, but the way, again, the PR section of Taliban, we have changed an evolution in them. Now they are talking to the world. Now we see them as someone who can talk very well, communicate very well in English. They can talk to Americans, they can talk to Russians, they can talk to Chinese. So they seem to be like in a perfect position of bargaining. And based on that, their narrative is already out there on the social media. Whatsoever is mainstream media is reporting is on one side, and what we are actually relying on is the PR section of Taliban itself that is giving the first-hand information. So, well, hybrid war, it is a reality for the rest of the world as well, as much as it is for us. But I don't think so that it is very much possible to hold back the horses based on that. I think we are very close to the region. We are very close to Afghanistan. We have the best of the reports that we get. So misinformation is not going to work, I think.
Aminah, what do you have to say about this fifth generation war, which I believe the Taliban might have to face in the future?
Look, first of all, I don't think we need to get ahead of ourselves. The Taliban haven't won this war. The fact that they've taken over militarily does not mean they've won the war. Number one, please remember that Afghanistan, although it's been in turmoil and it's been at war with the world and itself, it has evolved. Similarly, if the Taliban do come into some sort of a power-sharing setup, they need legitimacy. They cannot operate in isolation. And therefore, if they go back to their old ways, they are not going to get the recognition and the support they currently do have from regional countries. Yes, China, Russia, Pakistan, the Central Asians, and Iran are engaging with them. But if they go back to their old ways, they are not going to get that support. The Taliban, you know, they've learned the art of diplomacy. They have been engaging, and they've been reassuring not only the regional countries, but extra-regional countries that they will not go back to their old ways, because as I just said, if they do, they will not get that support and they cannot function in isolation. However, at the same time, I think it is important that, yes, they keep on saying that, you know, we will allow go to school. We're hearing reports that they're marrying off, young women to their fighters. The members on the ground, those that are fighting.
That statement has already been ruled out by spokesperson Suhail Shaheen. Aminah.
No, it has been ruled out, but you see, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So therefore, it has to be ensured that these policies that the Doha office or Suhail Shaheen is talking about are implemented on the ground, because there is this sense of fear. Certainly there is. And while, women's rights haven't really been, respected in Afghanistan, even during the past, two regimes of President Ghani, there is fear that if the Taliban come back, it's going to be a repeat of the mill. So I think it's important, but again, if there is regional pressure, which I think they certainly will be, the Taliban will not go back to their old ways.
And what are going to be the new ways that Taliban might be intending to go on, Aminah?
Well, listen, one should not expect, women to be back in jeans and roaming around in Kabul, but certainly the fact that they'll be allowed to go to, their educational institutions, the fact that, women will be able to continue working. There are a number of women that are working in, different public sectors as well as the government. And as I said, the Taliban cannot operate in isolation. And they know that if they go back to their old ways, they're not going to get the support that they so badly need from regional countries. And I'm not just talking about political support. Let's talk about economic and developmental support.
Amna, I have a question
yes,
for you,
please,
if I may. If I may enter the debate. So when you say that it would not be easy for Taliban to behave in their old ways, who's going to stop them if they start doing that? One. Two, what legitimate right do you think the world would have to stop them to act in that way after abandoning the entire country in a way that nobody has ever done? Maybe Saigon is the best example of that. That was when the worst of the humanitarian crisis happened in Vietnam. More than 2,000 of the people were promised visas and asylum in US, which did not happen, and they all died at the hand of the local operatives. So who's going to stop them if they are back to their old ways? More so, if I may add, because of the new regional interest in the region, with all that Belt and Road initiative and the connectivity, that is going to be enough for Taliban to rely on. Why would they want legitimacy?
Okay, no, they already have, and the Americans gave them that. To your question, yes, look, there are major concerns, and I understand where everybody's coming from. I am certainly not a spokesman or spokesperson for the Taliban, but since the Taliban needs the political, the economic, and the developmental support from regional countries will not allow the Taliban to operate the way they used to. And yes, CPEC can only function or can only be implemented, or for that matter, the larger BRI, when there is some sort of peace and stability. Regional countries fear that if the Taliban continue in their old ways, that is going to, move over to the borders of other countries. And certainly no country in the region would like to have the kind of rule that the Taliban had before, particularly when it comes to human rights or women's rights. So again, I say that, the Taliban need to be given a chance. And I really do feel that if the Taliban go back to their old ways, the region will not allow it, and nor will the Afghans themselves. And this is something that there is no assurance. And you talk about women's rights and they're going back to their old ways. But if you look at the past 20 years, where has the level of women's rights been in Afghanistan? Just the fact that women are going to school doesn't mean that women have their complete rights.
Right. To add on this point now, when I had a discussion with Zuhair Shaheen, spokesperson of the Taliban, obviously he said that women are going to be given due rights. They will be allowed to go to school. They will be allowed to work under the conditions which have been allowed in the Islamic Sharia law. And this is what they intend to implement in Afghanistan. And as earlier we were discussing this, that human rights violations are happening all around the world. Why do we have to center out Afghanistan especially? And obviously every country, I believe, has the right to rule according to its wants or needs. Aminah, comment?
Yeah, look, no, but again, every country has a lot to answer for when it comes to this particular sector, which is human rights, and it's debatable. So I'm not going to go into that. My only point is that the Taliban now, whether we like it or not, are going to be a major stakeholder in the future of Afghanistan. And I think these are important questions that should have been then put to the Americans, who again legitimize them by signing the agreement. If we come to Pakistan, Pakistan has always had a relationship with the Taliban, and this has been known. But the day the Americans signed the agreement, this emboldened them, and the fact that regional countries have been engaging with them. And again, I think the Taliban, again, as I keep on saying, have evolved, and they know that in order to get this recognition and support, they cannot operate the way they used to. And yes, as I said, there will be certain limitations. I think it's going to take time. And there are a number of questions regarding the Taliban. Whatever comes out of the Taliban's mouth has to be, viewed with a lot of mistrust because of the way they operated in the past. But I think one is hopeful that the Taliban have learned from the past, because what did they do? They simply alienated the society from the group, and hence this led to, their ouster from power, apart from obviously the Americans intervening. Also, it's contradictory on the part of the Taliban. All their families, at least the Doha office, they're going to mixed educational institutions in Qatar. So, there's contradiction. They will have to give women their due right and position in Afghanistan.
To which they have said that they will give. Now, Zunaira, I want you to enter into this debate now. Aminah says Taliban earlier said that Taliban has not won the war yet, and obviously about talking about the future government. So Aminah has a bit concerns about the Taliban, and according to Aminah, the old Taliban ways cannot work in the future. But I see a new Taliban with a new political victory in Afghanistan.
That exactly is my point, to be honest. Like, if you already had a complete military maneuver, a complete control over military tactics and all that, and we all know the way CIA supplied everything, and the way CIA trained them, the way CIA equipped them with money, they have got a hands-on training of fighting with the best military complex in the world. So I think anyone doing such an internship would come out as the best of the actor in the region militarily. And if you add to it the political dogma that they have been carrying around, that the way they have got their prisoners released, the way they have got whatever they wanted in Doha signed, the way they have got their office in Qatar, the way they have been talking to Americans, Chinese, and Russia, I would say at the same time. Don't forget that there is this other part of geopolitics where there is a trade war going on between US and China, and managing that is not easy even for a country which is stable like Pakistan. So Taliban as a political and has achieved a lot, earned a lot, and we cannot underestimate them. When it comes to what sort of government do they want, and what sort of Afghan society do they want, let it be very clear. They want everything according to Sharia. And if they are giving all the perks and all the leverages that the regional power, or for that matter, the US wants, like whatever legitimate kind of agreements, whatever connectivity that the powers want, if they are getting that, they are not going to interfere into what is happening in Afghanistan. I'm sorry, but it's a lethal world. It's a very unfair world. So me and you and Aminah, people like us, we are concerned about human rights, women's rights. The world is not, and we have seen that. So I think the things are going to give us a lot of surprises, and we should not underestimate the political power of Taliban.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, Aminah and Zunaira, we have breaking news. And earlier, there were sources telling us that we were getting information from President Ashraf Ghani has fled the country, but they were taken down as rumors. But now we have information coming from Tolu News that President Ghani has left the country. And this is something important going on right now in the developing Afghanistan situation, that President Ghani, the president of Afghanistan, has left Afghanistan while there are negotiations happening. And also we have a comment from NATO, and that says that political solution in Afghanistan is more urgent than ever. So we're bringing you breaking news right now from Afghanistan, and the information is, according to Tolu News, that President Ashraf Ghani has left the country. And what can we expect after this? Now, we do not have clarity of what is agreed upon or what is currently happening. Apart from this, that we know negotiations are happening right now in the presidential palace. We know there is a segment of the negotiating tables which are flying to Doha right now, and we know also there is right now a delegation in Islamabad. And now that we know that Ashraf Ghani has left the country, where is Afghanistan standing? Zunaira.
Well, I'm just not surprised because many, we were discussing it that whatever is happening right now, and quote unquote, what is happening between Taliban and between the palace, we are talking about the negotiation. I told you it was about getting every single American out of Afghanistan safe and sound. Do you remember that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And now I guess Ashraf Ghani has left safe and sound too.
That includes Ashraf Ghani to me, at least, because that was a puppet government. I never agreed to the fact that he's the legitimate president of Afghanistan. So he's out of there. So negotiations are now going to be reported as successful in the Western media, and we are going to report it in a different way. So that is how things are unfolding, and it is not coming to me as a surprise at all. So one odd man out. Let's see how many other are over there agreed to join hands with Taliban, and how many people agree to join the inclusive or whatever interim setup is going to be there. So that is the kind of discussions, I think, which are happening at the moment.
Right now, Aminah, President Ashraf Ghani has left the country. I'll not use the word he's fled the country, because we were getting information earlier that he fled the country, but they were sparked as rumors. Now that Ashraf Ghani has left the country, has the Taliban won?
Look, I think it is extremely, extremely unfortunate. And I'm sorry, but this needs to be said. Just yesterday, President Ghani was speaking to reporters and saying that he would not abandon the faith. This is so unfortunate. Have the Taliban won? You know, once the Taliban have the full support of the people of Afghanistan, then they can say they have won. I am not going to say whether they've won.
You still say the Taliban do not have support of the Afghan people. We have seen provinces literally been handed over to them in the laps.
No, listen.
So what is in your opinion the actual support? What would you translate as the actual support?
Can I finish?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Right. Okay. I'm saying the people haven't really had much of a choice, have they? If you look at the previous elections, they were also, I mean, we talked about democracy. What democracy? They do not have a choice. They have not been given a choice. It's either the Taliban or then a regime that is enforced by the outside world. Number one. Number two, if the people have surrendered, they've surrendered because, as I said, they feel at this particular stage the Taliban are the lesser evil, because the Ghani regime has not been able to deliver, whether it's corruption, whether it's bringing relief to the masses. And I don't think, we should be giving statements by saying the Taliban have won. No, the Taliban will only win, this is my personal view, once they have the full support of the masses. And the full support means when they start delivering to the masses. Somebody that takes over militarily does not mean it has support of the masses. This is my personal view. And I don't think we should be trumping their card as well. Once they start delivering, once they start behaving as a responsible stakeholder and fulfilling all those promises that they have been talking about, then we should start giving statements like this.
Zunaira, has Taliban won?
Yep, absolutely. The thing is that if you look at the historical trajectory, Afghanistan is a tribal society. Tribal societies introducing Western democracies over there when? Well, we can dream about that, but that has not happened so far. Look at the entire Middle East. They have gone unstable, but they did not learn the ways of the West. So in the words of Rebecca Sheff, who is the authority on this subject, she says that when you do not incorporate the regional realities, the contextual realities of a place and try to apply one suit set for all kind of a formula, it doesn't work. And it has never worked throughout the human history. That's why when I say that Taliban has won, that is because they are the closest to the cultural and they are closest to the historical tentacles of Afghanistan, whether we like it or not, whether I personally agree to it or not, that Taliban should be in the government, that is a different thing. But my and your job is to look at the facts. So militarily, politically, they are in control. The US has fled, literally ran away. No other country is coming forward to help them if there is such a humanitarian crisis, or for that matter, a political crisis. No other country is coming forward. We would all want to see that kind of the day in our lifetime where there will be free and fair election in Afghanistan. But till that time, who is the closest to the victory? Taliban. Let's accept that.
Right, just to add on this, the Taliban have been taking the current situation in Afghanistan pretty swiftly, as we can also witness the response of the world to the situation happening right now in Afghanistan, which is not aggressive, Aminah.
Yes, certainly. They have, they're not repeating the mistakes that they made in the past, the way they've, taken over. It's been relatively peaceful, starting from the north, moving inwards, and they have assured regional countries. That is why they started taking over the border posts, saying that business is continuing as normal, so is trade. Now, coming over, yes, the Taliban, again, I don't know why we're arguing over this. The fact is the Taliban are there. My only point is that now the Taliban have been given this chance. They did not come in. They have come in, let's be honest, through a military victory, number one. Number two, now it is their responsibility to function as a responsible stakeholder. And this is not something that, we should be, I think this is, as Pakistanis, we have always been blamed for supporting one side. Let the Afghan people decide for themselves. And that is why we are saying it should be an inclusive setup that does include people in the Taliban. But we should certainly not be talking about or, rejoicing the military takeover of the Taliban. It should be something that the Afghans want and what the Afghan masses want, not something that should be brought in by force.
Absolutely agree to that.
And unfortunately, Moni, there is this problem going on everywhere nowadays that whenever there is a person who is trying to merely narrate the facts as a reporter or a correspondent or an analyst, it is often taken as pro-Taliban. That is not the case. I'm sorry, try to segregate. So when I'm reporting the fact that politically or militarily, Taliban have taken over, so yes, they have won, it is a fact-based analysis, not my personal opinion. And for that matter, if I say that it is their right to decide whatever they want to decide because no other nation is coming forward for the help of the Afghani people, that is also fact-based. So let's just discriminate between the facts and the analysis and not just condescendingly think that somebody is siding or rejoicing with the fact that Taliban are in control.
Nobody said that. I think you're taking this out of proportion. I certainly didn't say that anyway.
Well, all right, certainly. Now let's break. Just Zunaira said that no one is coming to the help of Afghanistan, but it seems that we have information coming to us right now that Pakistan has reopened crucial border crossing with Afghanistan for transfer of goods only, and Pakistan has opened the Torkham border crossing in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, the busiest commercial point of entry between Pakistan and Afghanistan, obviously, for the transfer of goods and supplies, according to the senior border officials. And the border is not open to pedestrians yet or travelers. And we have seen heavy trucks transporting perishable items, including fruits and vegetables, which are being given a priority. And as we speak right now, we also have information that Iran has set up camps along the Afghanistan border for affecting refugee crisis in the future, if we may. So, Zunaira, let me just come to you now with all this we have on our hand right now. Can we expect a refugee crisis?
Unfortunately, yes, we can't do that. It's the same situation like when there were so many refugees piled up at Syrian border, the border with the Turkey, I mean. And Turkey had to open the border because, of course, as a humanitarian concern, how can you witness women and children without food, without shelter, and you just look the other way? And at that point, European Union funded Turkey at a very heavy level in the name of humanitarian crisis, and they stood with Turkey. Well, it was a selfish way as well because they made sure that none of these refugees come towards the rest of the Europe. Over here, if Iran is doing it, I think Pakistan would have to do it, but we cannot expect more refugees while we are already hosting a lot in our country for two reasons. One, our economy is not going to afford that. Two, the kind of resurgency policy that is expected out of TTP, there is a possibility that the terrorist groups are fleeing into Pakistani borders under the cover of refugees. So it's humanitarian crisis. Yes, we are expecting that, and at the same time, it's a security risk for us. So that's why I have been saying that situation is maybe getting over for the rest of the world. For us, it is a new beginning of a humanitarian crisis and security issues.
Right, Aminah, your comment on this?
Yes, certainly. Pakistan is not in a position, to take in more refugees. We always talk about having 3 million. I think the unregistered refugee number is far greater, since we, obviously they're not documented, but this is something that concerns us. I, however, feel that I think China is one country that has been engaging with both the Taliban as well as the other political factions, minus Ghani now, because he remains irrelevant. So I think China is that one country that could play, I think, the role of a credible interlocutor, and particularly when it comes to making the Taliban deliver, as well as the humanitarian crisis that might come out of Afghanistan. The fact that we've seen internally large-scale displacement, but not so much outside the borders, does show that one maybe might not envisage such a large-scale, exodus of people. That is if the transition of power is somewhat smooth and peaceful. But I think regional countries have been engaging with one another. And there is, talk of providing humanitarian support. Yes, the UN obviously needs to intervene, and more so, I think the Americans and the international community, particularly the European Union, because they keep on saying that they're going to support Afghanistan, with economic assistance. But I think we need to see that more on the ground now, instead of just giving statements.
Absolutely. Now, just to add, Zunaira, we have a statement from a U.S. senator, a member of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and that says that...
Sorry,
yes.
Munib, I'm really sorry, but I have another commitment, so I will have to,
Please, thank you very much, Aminah. Thank you very much for talking to us on Indus News. Aminah Khan, a political analyst. Now, Zunaira, as I was saying, a U.S. senator, a member of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, has released a statement on Afghanistan, saying the U.S. would regret its move and foreign relations would suffer as a consequences. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that is the exactly thing that I have been hammering about in this transmission and the one before that as well, that US is losing credibility as a peacemaker, as a superpower, as someone who we used to look up to whenever there were crises in the world. Let it be World War I, let it be World War II. US always came forward as a savior, as setting the pace for the new world order and stuff like that. But 1950 onwards, as the Cold War was setting its feet, setting the pace of whatever was happening between US and Russia, we have seen the very ugly side of their foreign relations. That is, one, their foreign policy is very confused. Two, it is flawed. And three, they are not ready to accept it. So they keep on repeating the same mistakes. Let it be in Russia, let it be in the Cold War, let it be in Kuwait, let it be what has happened in the name of spring, Arab Spring. Well, we all know what happened at the end of the Arab Spring. It was a bloodbath. What happened in Libya, Iraq, Syria, and now Afghanistan. So yes, there is a deep, deep divisiveness in US itself, within its Senate and Congress, where they say that the kind of behavior that the American policymakers have implemented and shown on the ground, it is happening to be losing the credibility of US as a permanent UN member, as someone who has been the superpower unipolar world for the significance, I would say. And when it comes to regional powers, China and Russia, the way that Russia has made a comeback, it is based on connectivity and engagement. And the way US is trying to contain everything rather than engage, it's flabbergasting, because the policy flaws that happened in Vietnam, the policy flaws that happened in Afghanistan, they certainly ask for re-looking into the foreign policy of US, and especially the right-wing agenda of US is that US is fast losing control over the world, as one country which used to be called an American dream, something that we all used to look forward to, and a democracy which was like a pattern that other countries followed.
Right, absolutely. Aminah Khan, political analyst, you were joining us on Indus News. Thank you very much. And obviously, thank you very much, Zunaira, for your analysis on Indus News. And also, we had with us Rafiuz Zaman, former ambassador, on this segment of the Afghanistan Special and the developing story on Afghanistan. Right now, the latest news is that President Ashraf Ghani has left Afghanistan, and we shall keep our audiences updated with all the latest which is happening in Afghanistan. Till then, keep watching Indus News.